My name is Nora Bennett. I am 29 years old. I wear a size 22, and on the afternoon my manager fired me in the middle of the lobby of the Aldrich Hotel. I had been standing behind that front desk for 2 years, 4 months, and 11 days. I want you to understand what that desk was to me before I tell you what happened at 4:47 that afternoon. The Aldrich is on Arlington Street across from the public garden. It is 111 years old. The lobby is marble and mahogany, and there is a fireplace in the sitting area that a bellhop named Hector lights every morning at 6:30 from October to April. There are 2 leather couches in front of that fireplace. Between them there is a low table with a folded stack of the day's Boston Globe and Wall Street Journal and Financial Times, which I refold every hour when I do my lobby walk. The front desk is a slab of black walnut 14 feet long that was cut from a single tree in New Hampshire in 1919. There are 3 computer stations behind it. The one on the left was mine. I got the job in July 2 years ago. I was 26. My mother had just been moved into memory care in Warwick, Rhode Island, and I had $6,000 in the bank and a rent bill in Allston I was 2 weeks behind on. I applied on a Tuesday, interviewed on a Thursday, and started on the following Monday under the previous general manager, a woman named Delia Chen, who took one look at me in the ill-fitting hotel blazer they had given me and said, "Nora, honey, the uniform bender caps at 16, but the job is yours. So go to Nordstrom on your lunch break and pick out a navy blazer in your actual size and give me the receipt and I will reimburse you out of petty cash." She did. She reimbursed me $47 for a blazer that cost me $180. I did not tell her. I wore that blazer for 2 years. I bought a second one, identical, when the first one started to shine at the elbows. I paid for that one myself. Delia was not there anymore by then. Delia retired in September. She was replaced in October by a man named Marcus Halberd, 46, from a boutique chain in Miami, who came into the lobby on his first morning in a light gray suit and pointed shoes and looked at the fireplace and said, "We are going to have to talk about the smell of wood smoke." And I knew, standing behind my walnut desk in my navy blazer, that I was on a clock. He put me on the clock the next week. You started with the small things. A memo about grooming. A memo about grooming. A memo about presentation standards for public-facing staff. He did not say my name in any of them. He did not have to. There were 4 people at the front desk. 2 men, 1 older woman named Patrice who had been there 19 years and who Marcus was afraid of, and me. The memos were for me. Then it was the schedule. My best shifts, 7 to 3 on weekdays when the executives checked in and out and the tips at the desk were real, went to a girl named Brittany he hired in November who was 22 and a size 2 and had never worked a front desk before in her life. I got moved to 12 to 8, then to 2 to 10, then to a rotation he called flexible, which was not flexible. It was whatever shift Brittany did not want that week. Then it was the write-ups. 4 of them in 6 weeks. 1 for a check-in Brittany had botched and left for me to clean up. 1 for body language at the desk, which was a phrase I had to read 3 times before I understood what it was accusing me of. 1 for inappropriate uniform, which was my second navy blazer, the identical one, which Delia Chen had approved in writing and which was in my personnel file with her signature on it. Marcus signed the write-up anyway. I signed under his signature. I wrote, "See attached memo from previous GM in the comments box." He tore that copy up in front of me and printed a new one and told me to sign it clean. I signed it clean. I signed it clean because my mother's memory care bill was $3,200 a month, and my salary was $63,000 a year, and I had health insurance through the hotel that covered the second opinion my mother's neurologist wanted, and I had $184 in my checking account on the morning of the day Marcus Halberd fired me in the middle of the lobby, and I could not afford to lose the job before I had another one lined up. I want you to know that. I want you to know I was not brave. I was not proud. I was tired and I was scared, and I signed everything he put in front of me, and I smiled at every guest, and I refolded the newspapers every hour on the hour, and I wore my own blazer that I had paid for, and I said, "Good morning, sir, and welcome back to the Aldrich 1142 times in 4 weeks, because I had counted in my head on the walk home on the days I could not sleep. Now I have to tell you about the man on the couch. He checked in on a Tuesday in late March. I was at the desk. It was 7:18 in the morning. I had come on at 7, and I had already made coffee for Hector, and refolded the papers and logged into my station, and I looked up when the revolving door turned, and a man came through it alone. He was tall, 6'2", maybe 6'3", dark hair, cut short, silver at the temples, a charcoal three-piece suit that had been made for him, a black wool overcoat over his arm. No luggage, no phone in his hand. He walked across my lobby the way a man walks across a room he owns. Not fast, not slow, like the marble had been laid down for his shoes. He came to my station, not to Brittany's, which was closer to the door, not to Patrice's, to mine. "Good morning," he said. "Vitale, Damiano. Presidential suite. 2 weeks. A driver will bring my bags at 10. His voice was low and even. There was an accent under it that had been rounded down by a long time in America. I typed. He was in the system, not a walk-in. The reservation had been made 3 days before by an assistant named Enzo for a stay of 11 to 14 nights with a company card on file that had no spending limit that I could see. "Welcome back to the Aldrich, Mr. Vitale." He looked at me. He looked at me for what I think was the first time, and what I did not know then was actually about the fifth. He had been in the lobby before, not as a guest. I placed him a second later, in the way you place a face when the shape of it moves into a memory. He had been at a bar mitzvah luncheon in our second-floor ballroom in December. He had walked through the lobby to get to the elevator. He had looked at me then, too. I had not noticed because I had been checking in a family from Nebraska. "Thank you," he said. "Miss Bennett. Bennett, Miss Bennett. Thank you." He took his key card. He walked to the elevator. He did not look back. At 9:45 that morning, he came down. He was in a different suit, a navy one. He crossed the lobby to my desk. He stood in front of it. He put a folded bill on the walnut, close to my hand but not touching it, and he said, "I like the coffee at the sitting area better than the coffee in the suite. Would you have Hector bring it to me there?" "Every morning, between 9 and 9:30. I said, "Of course, Mr. Vitale." He said, "Thank you, Miss Bennett." He walked to the leather couch by the fireplace. He sat down. He unfolded the Financial Times. He read it. I looked down at the folded bill on my desk. It was 100. I want to be honest with you. In 2 years and 4 months at that desk, I had never taken a tip that big from a single guest. I had taken 20s. I had taken a 50 once from a bride's father whose whole rehearsal dinner I had rearranged after a snowstorm canceled a caterer. I had never taken 100. I put it in the tip envelope in the drawer. At the end of the shift, I would split it with Hector and Patrice and the 2 overnight girls, the way we had always done it. That is how the desk worked. That is how Delia had run it. That is how we kept running it, because Marcus did not know we did it. The next morning, he did it again. He came down at 9:15 in a different suit. He crossed the lobby to my desk. He put a folded 100 on the walnut. He said, "Good morning, Miss Bennett. The coffee, please." I said, "Of course, Mr. Vitale." He walked to the couch. He sat down. He read the paper. By the 4th morning, I understood it was going to be every morning. By the 6th, I understood it was not a tip for the coffee. Hector brought the coffee. The tip did not go to Hector. It came to my hand. On the walnut. Between us. I split it with the desk anyway. Every night. 25 to Hector, 25 to Patrice, 25 to the overnights, 25 to me. That was the rule. I did not break the rule for anyone. On the 7th morning, when he put the bill down, he said, "Miss Bennett." "Yes, Mr. Vitale." I have noticed that Mr. Alvarez the bellman is always very cheerful when I come down, and that Mrs. Kowalski at the second station is always very cheerful, and that the young woman who came on Monday at the 3rd station is very cheerful." I did not say anything. I waited. "You are the only one who is not cheerful," he said. "You are polite. You are competent. You are competent. You are, in the 2 weeks I have watched, the most competent person in this lobby, but you are not cheerful." I said, "I am sorry, Mr. Vitale. Would you like me to be more cheerful?" "No," he said. "I would like you to know that I see it, That is all. Thank you, Miss Bennett. The coffee, please. He walked to the couch. He sat down. He read the paper. I stood at the desk with my hands flat on the walnut, and I did not move for maybe 15 seconds, and then I picked up the phone and I called Hector for the coffee and I said, "The sitting area, please." Mr. Vitale, as usual, and my voice was exactly the same as it always was, and my hands were shaking very slightly against the phone, and I do not know if he could see it from the couch. I think he could. I think he could see everything from that couch. That was the point of the couch. That was Monday. 8 mornings in. By 11 mornings, in which was the afternoon, Marcus fired me. I'd taken $1,100 bills from Damiano Vitale's hand across the walnut desk, and I had split every one of them with the desk. And I had said, "Thank you, Mr. Vitale, the coffee, please," 11 times. And he had said, "Thank you, Miss Bennett," 11 times. And he had walked to the couch 11 times. And he had read the paper 11 times. And he had not said one other thing to me except the thing about competence on the 7th morning. I did not know his last name was famous. I did not read the Metro section of the Globe. I knew he was a construction executive because the reservation note said Vitale Construction, Boston, 25 years preferred client. No housekeeping between 10 and 4. No calls to be put through without name verified against approved list. I knew he had a driver and an assistant, and a suite the hotel comped by the third night because Delia had built the account back in 2019, and Marcus, for all his memos, had not touched the preferred client file. I knew he tipped 100 a morning, and I knew he watched. I did not know he was the head of anything except a construction company. I want you to know that too. I want you to know I did not take the money because of what he was. I took the money because he handed it to me across a walnut desk, and I put it in an envelope, and I split it 4 ways with the people I worked with. And if the 5th cut of that envelope helped me pay $80 of my mother's care that month, then it did, and I did not have a bigger thought about it than that. The 11th morning was a Wednesday. He put the bill down. He said, "Good morning, Miss Bennett. The coffee, please." I said, "Of course, Mr. Vitale." He walked to the couch. He sat down. He read the paper. He was still on the couch at 4:47 in the afternoon when my manager came out of the back office and walked across the lobby toward my desk, with a folder in his hand and Brittany 2 steps behind him, and a look on his face I had seen exactly one time before, 6 weeks earlier on the day he fired the man who used to be the night bellman. I knew before he opened his mouth. I put both hands flat on the walnut. I made my face very still. I looked over Marcus's shoulder, because that is what you do at a front desk when a manager is coming toward you, and you do not want the guests in the lobby to feel a scene. And I saw the man on the couch fold the newspaper. He folded it very slowly, in half, then in half again. He set it on the low table. He did not stand up, but he folded the paper, and he leaned back into the leather, and he put his hands on his knees, and he looked at me across the lobby. Only at me. Not at Marcus. Not at Brittany. Only at me. Marcus arrived at the desk. "Nora," he said. His voice was pitched to Carrie. He did not lower it. There were 2 guests at the far end of the desk, a couple checking in for an anniversary weekend, being helped by Patrice. There was a woman on the settee near the elevator waiting for her husband. There was Hector by the door. There was Damiano Vitale on the couch by the fireplace. "Yes, Mr. Halberd," I said. "Nora, I've had a series of conversations with corporate and with the ownership group, and we've come to a decision about the direction of the front of house presentation." He said it like a speech he had practiced in a mirror. I think he had. "Yes, Mr. Halberd." Nora. He opened the folder. He did not read from it. He held it like a prop. The Aldrich has a certain image, a certain standard. Our guests, when they walk through that door, they expect to see a certain kind of face, a certain kind of impression, and I have to be honest with you, Nora, and I'm going to be honest with you in front of the team because I believe in transparency. I heard the leather couch creak once. Very softly. He was standing up. "You are, frankly, too heavy to be the first thing our guests see when they enter this lobby. We have discussed the uniform. We have discussed the presentation. We have given you every opportunity, and I am afraid that today is going to have to be your last day at the Aldrich. You have until the end of your shift to clear out your locker. Brittany will cover the desk. Patrice will supervise your exit. I'm sorry, Nora. This is not personal. This is business. He closed the folder. He looked pleased. I did not move. I did not move for what I think was 3 or 4 seconds. I put my hands very carefully off the walnut, and I put them at my sides, and I looked at Marcus Halberd, 46, 6 weeks into a job Delia Chen had done for 11 years. And I said, in a voice I did not know I had, Mr. Halberd. Yes, Nora. I would like you to say that again. Excuse me. I would like you to say that again. The reason. Out loud. Once more. In this lobby. So that I can be sure I have heard you correctly. Marcus blinked. He looked at Brittany. Brittany was looking at her shoes. He looked at Patrice, who had stopped what she was doing at the anniversary couple's paperwork and was standing very still, with a pen in her hand, and looking at Marcus the way a woman, with 19 years at a hotel, looks at a 6-week manager who has just handed her a lawsuit. He looked back at me. Nora, he said. His voice was lower now. Do not make this harder then. Say it again, Mr. Halberd. Nora, say it again. He did not say it again. He did not say it again. He closed his mouth. He tucked the folder under his arm. He said, Clear your locker. Patrice will walk you out. He turned. He walked away from the desk. He walked toward the elevator. He did not look at the couch by the fireplace as he went past it, because he did not know there was anything on the couch by the fireplace to look at. I watched him get in the elevator. I watched the doors close. I turned to Patrice. Patrice's eyes were wet. She said very quietly, Nora, honey. It is all right, Patrice. It is not all right. I know, but it is all right for right now. I am going to go get my things. I will walk you. I know. I turned around. I unpinned my name tag. I set it on the walnut. I took off the navy blazer I'd paid $180 for at Nordstrom on my lunch break 2 years ago, and I folded it over my arm because it was mine and I was not leaving it in a locker in a basement of a hotel that had just told me I was too heavy to stand in its lobby. I logged out of my station. I closed the drawer. I walked around the end of the desk. I did not look at the couch by the fireplace. I walked across the lobby with Patrice half a step behind me. I walked past Hector, who touched the brim of his cap without looking up at me, because he knew I could not hold his eyes right then. I walked past the couple at the anniversary check-in, who had the good sense to be looking at their phones. I walked past the couch by the fireplace. I did not look. I could feel him looking at me. Standing, because he had stood up. I could feel him standing there in a charcoal 3-piece suit with the paper folded on the low table and his hands at his sides, and I could feel his eyes on the side of my face the whole way across the marble, and I did not look because if I looked I was going to cry, and I was not going to cry in that lobby. Not in that lobby. Not for Marcus Halberd. Not with Damiano Vitale watching. I went down to the basement. I opened locker 14. There was almost nothing in it. A pair of flats. A tin of Altoids. A photograph of my mother from 2016, at a beach in Rhode Island, laughing at something my father had said. A small bottle of Advil. A phone charger. A cardigan. I put them in a canvas tote bag. I closed the locker. I did not slam it. I closed it the way you close a door on a room you know you are not coming back to. Patrice walked me up the service stairs to the side door on Providence Street. She hugged me on the sidewalk. She was crying. I was not crying yet. Nora, she said. Nora, I am going to call the union. I'm going to call Delia. I'm going to call every person in the city who ever worked in this hotel. I'm going to burn his life to the ground. Patrice. I mean it. I know you mean it. Please do not do anything today. Please go back inside and finish your shift. Please do not lose your job over me. Please. She held my face in both hands. She said, Nora Bennett, you listen to me. That man is not going to be at that desk in a month. Patrice, please go back inside. She kissed my forehead. She went back inside. I stood on Providence Street in the March cold in a white blouse and gray pants and no coat because my coat was still on the hook behind the desk and I could not go back for it. I had my tote bag with my flats and my all toys and my mother's picture and my navy blazer folded over my arm. I had $184 in my checking account. I had no job. I had a mother in memory care in Warwick who owed $3,200 on the 1st of next month. I had health insurance for 18 more days. I stood there for what I think was 30 seconds. Then I put the blazer on. Because it was cold, I walked to the T at Arlington. I got on the Green Line to Canmore, and I changed to the B, and I went home to Alston, and I climbed the 4 flights to my apartment, and I put my key in the door, and I closed the door behind me, and I set my tote bag down, and I sat my tote bag down, and I sat on the edge of my bathtub in my clothes, and I turned the tap on cold, and I let the water run over my hands. Then I cried. I want to be honest. It was not a graceful cry. It was the ugly kind. I sat on the edge of my tub in a white blouse and cried for maybe 20 minutes, and my nose ran and I did not wipe it, and at some point I got up and I poured myself a glass of cheap red wine from a bottle I had opened the previous Sunday, and I drank half of it standing at my kitchen counter, and I did not eat anything, and I did not turn on the television, and I did not check my phone. My phone had been going the whole time. I have felt it vibrate in my pocket 6 or 7 times on the train. I did not want to know who it was. I did not want to talk to my sister, and I did not want to talk to my mother's care coordinator. And I did not want to talk to the union rep Patrice had probably already called. At 8:45, I sat down on my couch with the wine glass. I turned on the television. Local news. A weather report. A story about a fire in Chelsea. A story about a car in a parking garage on Stuart Street in the Back Bay. A black BMW driver's side door standing open. Phone on the dashboard, no driver, no signs of struggle. Police asking anyone with information to call the tip line. The anchor said the car was registered to a Marcus J. Halberd, 46, of Brookline. Manager of the Aldrich Hotel. I set the wine glass down on the coffee table. I sat on my couch in a white blouse, and my navy blazer folded over the arm of the couch beside me, and I stared at the television, and I did not move. At 9:52, my buzzer rang. I did not go to the door. I stood up. I went to the window. I pulled the curtain back 1 inch. There was a black sedan parked in front of my building. Not a car service. Too clean, too new. The kind of sedan you notice on Alston Street, because Alston Street does not have sedans like that. The driver was in the driver's seat. The back seat was empty. The buzzer rang again. I went to the intercom. I pressed the button. I said, "Yes." A voice I had heard 11 times said, "Miss Bennett, it is Damiano Vitale. May I come up? I am alone." I did not answer for a second. Then I pressed a button that unlocked the downstairs door. I heard him come up the 4 flights of stairs. Not fast, not slow. The way a man walks up a staircase he does not own but is not intimidated by. He stopped at my door. He did not knock. He waited. I opened it. He was in the charcoal 3-piece suit from the morning. He was holding my coat, folded neatly over his arm. My gray wool coat with the missing second button that I had left on the hook behind the front desk. He was also holding a small paper bag from the deli on the corner of Arlington and Providence, the deli where I got a bagel every morning on my way in. He held them both out to me. "I brought your coat," he said, "and a sandwich. You did not eat." I looked at him. I looked at the coat. I looked at the sandwich bag. I said, "Mr. Vitale." "Damiano." "Mr. Vitale." "Damiano." Vitale, where is Marcus Halberd? He did not blink. He did not smile. He did not soften. "He is in a room I own," he said. "In a building I own. He is unharmed. He has not been touched. He is being talked to by 2 men I trust. He will be on a plane to Ohio at 6:15 tomorrow morning with a check and a signed piece of paper, and he will never work in a hotel again, and he will never say your name out loud again for the rest of his life. That is what is happening to Marcus Halberd. May I come in?" I did not move. I said, "Mr. Vitale." "Damiano." "Mr. Vitale, who are you?" He looked at me for a long moment. His eyes were very dark and very steady, and they did not leave my face. "You do not know," he said. It was not a question. It was almost gentle. In 11 mornings you did not look me up. No, Miss Bennett. No, Mr. Vitale. May I come in and tell you? I stood in my doorway in a white blouse and bare feet with my mascara halfway down my face and a glass of cheap wine on my coffee table behind me. And I looked at Damiano Vitale holding my coat and a sandwich, and I thought about the 11 mornings and the folded newspaper in the couch by the fireplace and Marcus Halbert's black BMW with the door standing open on Stuart Street, and I stepped back. "Come in, Mr. Vitale," I said. He came in. He set the coat on the back of my one good chair. He set the sandwich on the kitchen counter. He closed the door behind himself. He took his own overcoat off and he folded it once and he laid it across the arm of my couch on top of my navy blazer, so that the wool of his coat was touching the wool of my blazer, and I do not know why I noticed that, but I did. He sat down in my chair, not on my couch, the chair across the coffee table from where I had been sitting. "Please sit down, Miss Bennett," he said. "I am going to tell you who I am, and then I am going to tell you what I did this evening. And then I am going to ask you a question, and you are going to answer it however you answer it, and I am going to do whatever you say. Do you understand?" I sat down on my couch. I picked up the wine glass. I put it down again. I folded my hands in my lap. I looked at him. "Yes, Mr. Vitale," I said. "I understand." He nodded once. "Very small. My name is Damiano Vitale," he said. "I am 43 years old. I was born in Palermo. I came to this country when I was 9 years old. My family has been in Boston since 1919. My uncle Salvatore ran the family until he died at a restaurant on Prince Street in the fall of 2014. I've run it since. The construction company is real. The construction company is also not the whole story. Do you understand what I am telling you?" I said yes. "Say it, Miss Bennett. I need you to say it." I said, "You are telling me you are a Mafia boss." He said yes. He said it the way another man would have said yes. "I am an accountant." Flat. True. Without apology and without pride. I did not say anything for a long time. He waited. Then I said the 11 mornings. Yes. The $1,100. Yes. The $1,100. Yes. The couch. Yes. You were watching me. Yes. For how long? Since December. The bar mitzvah in the second-floor ballroom. I walked past your desk. You were checking in a family from Nebraska. The father had 2 little girls. One of them was crying because she had left a stuffed rabbit at the airport. You told her the hotel had a rabbit that lived in the basement, and you would send Hector down to see if you could borrow it for her overnight. You called the toy store in Newbury before the family got to the elevator. You had a stuffed rabbit in her room in 40 minutes. You paid for it out of your own tip envelope because Mr. Albert had told you that week that comps were only to be approved by him. I stood in your lobby and I watched you do that, and I made a decision. I have made 3 decisions in my life that have mattered, and that was one of them. Do you understand? I did not say anything. He said, "I've been staying at the Aldrich for 11 nights because I was waiting to see whether Mr. Halbert was going to do what I thought he was going to do to you. He did it this afternoon." I stood up from the couch. I folded the newspaper. I went upstairs to the suite. I made 3 phone calls. Mr. Halbert was in a car in the parking garage on Stuart Street at 7:15 this evening. He is now in a room in a building in Chelsea. He will be on a plane to Ohio in the morning. He is not hurt. I do not hit small men. I make them very small, and I send them away. That is what has happened. I said, "Mr. Vitale." "Damiano." "Mr. Vitale, why?" He looked at me. "Because you were kind to a child who had lost a rabbit," he said. "Because you signed 4 write-ups in 6 weeks in a job you were the best at. Because your mother has memory care in Warwick. Because you split every one of my $100 bills 4 ways with a bellman and a woman named Patrice and 2 overnight girls whose names I do not know. But you do. Because I have watched you say, 'Welcome back to the Aldrich' to men who did not deserve to be welcomed anywhere in a blazer you paid for yourself for 2 years and 4 months. And I decided in December that when a man tried to take that desk away from you, I was going to take his desk away from him. That is why, Miss Bennett. Do you understand?" I said, yes. He said, now I am going to ask you the question. I said, all right. He said, there are two things I can do for you tonight. I want you to listen to both of them before you answer. The first is that I can make Mr. Halbert's departure a resignation instead of a disappearance, and I can have you reinstated at the Aldrich tomorrow morning at 3 times your current salary with a written contract, and you can go back to your desk, and I can go back to my couch, and we can go back to 11 mornings and the coffee. That is the first. The second is that I can pay your mother's memory care in Warwick for the rest of her life in full, out of an account she will never see me on, and I can put $100,000 in your bank account tomorrow, and you can never work another day if you do not want to. And I will never come to the store again unless you ask me to. That is the second. Do you understand both? I said, yes. He said, which do you want? I sat on my couch in a white blouse with mascara on my cheeks and a glass of cheap red wine on the coffee table, and I looked across at Damiano Vitale in my one good chair, and I thought about her for maybe 10 seconds, and then I said the thing I had not known I was going to say until the words were already in my mouth. I want a third thing, Mr. Vitale. He went very still. Say it, Miss Bennett. I said it. I said it. I want you to buy the hotel, Mr. Vitale. He did not move. I said it again because I needed to hear it a second time to be sure it was mine. I want you to buy the Aldrich. I do not want my desk back. I do not want 3 times my salary. I do not want a check. I want you to buy the hotel, and I want you to give me the job Marcus Halbert had this morning. That is what I want. That is the third thing. He looked at me for a long time. His hands did not move from his knees. His face did not change, but something behind his eyes did. Something settled the way a scale settles when you take your hand off it. Miss Bennett, he said. Yes. Do you understand what you are asking me? Yes. Say it. I'm asking you to buy a 111-year-old hotel in downtown Boston because a man humiliated me in its lobby at 4:47 this afternoon. I am asking you to take his job and give it to me. I'm asking you to make me the general manager of the Aldrich Hotel because I am the only person in that building who knows how to run it. And Delia Chen is not coming back. And Patrice will not take the job. And if you do not do this, a man who does not know my staff's names will do it instead. That is what I am asking. He was very quiet. Then he said, why? I did not have to think about the answer. It had been sitting in my chest for 6 weeks under every write-up I had signed clean. Because I know how to do it, Mr. Vitale. Because I have been doing half of it for 2 years already. Because I know the vendor for the linens. And I know the woman at the flower market on Chelsea Street who does our lobby arrangements at cost because Delia sent her son to Tufts. Because I know that the boiler on the 14th floor knocks when it kicks on at 4 in the morning, and every guest in the presidential suite has called the desk about it, and the answer is that the second engineer, Tomas, can fix it in 20 minutes, but the head of engineering will not authorize the overtime, because I know that Patrice has been carrying the reservation system on her back since the last upgrade, because Marcus does not know how to log into the admin panel, because I have made a spreadsheet, Mr. Vitale, of every operational failure in that building in the last 6 weeks, and I have kept it on a thumb drive in my locker, and I did not take it out today because I did not want to seem petty, and I am going to go back and get it in the morning, and I am going to show it to you. That is why. Because I know how to do it and no one else in that lobby does, and I am tired, Mr. Vitale. I am tired of standing behind a desk and watching a hotel I love be run into the ground by a man who fired me for the size of my body. If you are going to do a thing for me tonight, do that thing. That is the thing I want. I stopped. He was looking at me the way I imagine a man looks at a horse he did not know he had bought. Miss Bennett, he said. Yes, Mr. Vitale. How much is a 111-year-old hotel in downtown Boston? On paper, $412 million. In practice, the ownership group has been trying to sell to a Qatari fund for 2 years, and they cannot agree on the valuation. Delia told me before she retired that the group would take $340 in cash from the right buyer. I do not know if that is still true. I know the managing partner is a man named Aaron Weiss, and I know his office is on the 22nd floor of a building on State Street. And I know his secretary's name is Colleen, and Colleen has a granddaughter who is a junior at BC. That is what I know. He looked at me for another second. Then he did something I had not seen him do in 11 mornings. He smiled. It was a small smile, and it did not last more than 2 seconds, and it did not touch anything except the corners of his mouth, but it was a smile. "Aaron Weiss," he said. "Yes, I know Aaron Weiss. I thought you might." He stood up. He did not put his overcoat on. He walked to my kitchen. He picked up the paper bag with the sandwich in it, and he brought it to the coffee table, and he set it in front of me. "Eat," he said. "Please. It is turkey with the mustard from the jar with the yellow label, because I saw you ask Hector to bring you one from that deli last Thursday." "Eat the sandwich, Miss Bennett. I am going to make 3 phone calls in your kitchen. Then I am going to leave. I will come back at 9 tomorrow morning with an answer. Is that all right?" I said, "Yes, Mr. Vitale." "Damiano." "Yes, Damiano." He nodded once. He walked to my kitchen. He turned his back to me. A courtesy, I understood later, so I would not have to watch his face while he did what he was going to do, and he made 3 phone calls. The first was in Italian. It was short. I did not understand any of it except one word, Aldrich, which he said once at the end. The second was in English. He said, "Colleen, it's Damiano Vitale. I know it's late. Would you get a message to Aaron for me tonight? Tell him I want to buy the Aldrich. Tell him I know the number is 340. Tell him I am prepared to close in 72 hours. Tell him I would like his answer by 6 a.m. Yes. Thank you, Colleen. How is Sophia at BC? Yes. Yes, tell her that. Thank you, Colleen. Good night." The third was also in English. He said, "Enzo, get me Rachel Kim on the phone before midnight." Yes. "In her house if you have to. Tell her it is the Aldrichs, and tell her the buyer is me, and tell her I want her at the closing." Yes. Thank you. He hung up. He came back to the living room. He picked up his overcoat. "Miss Bennett." "Yes." "Nora." It was the first time he had used my first name. He said it carefully, the way a man says a word he has been holding in his mouth for a long time. "Yes, Damiano." "Eat the sandwich." "Yes. I will see you at 9. He let himself out. I heard him go down the 4 flights of stairs. I heard the front door of my building close. I heard the sedan pull away. I sat on my couch and I ate the sandwich. It was turkey with the mustard from the jar with the yellow label. It was the best sandwich I have ever eaten in my life. I do not remember chewing it. I did not sleep that night. I do not remember trying. At 6:14 in the morning, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I answered it. A woman's voice said, "Miss Bennett, this is Colleen from Aaron Weiss's office. Aaron would like me to tell you the answer is yes. He would like me to tell you personally because Aaron said, and I am quoting him, Colleen, that girl is the only person in that whole building who ever remembered my wife had a peanut allergy. Congratulations, honey. Get some coffee. It is going to be a day." I said, "Thank you, Colleen." She said, "Sophia says thank you for the letter of recommendation for the summer internship, by the way." I said, "Tell her she is welcome." She hung up. I sat on the edge of my bathtub for the second time in 12 hours. This time I did not cry. At 8:58, the buzzer rang. I went down. He was standing on the sidewalk in a different suit. Navy. Not the charcoal from yesterday. The sedan was behind him. Enzo was in the driver's seat this time. Enzo looked up when I came out and touched the brim of a cap he was not wearing in that small, formal way. Older Italian men have, and I understood without being told that Enzo knew who I was and had known for a while. Damiano opened the back door for me. He did not touch my elbow. He did not put a hand on my back. He held the door and he waited until I had settled myself, and then he closed the door and he walked around and got in on the other side. "Miss Bennett." "Yes. The papers will be signed at 2 this afternoon at Rachel Kim's office on Federal Street. You do not have to be there. You should be there. Would you like to be there?" "I would like to be there." "Good. There's a stop first, then breakfast, then Rachel's office, then at 4:30 if it is all right with you. We are going to walk through the front door of the Aldrich together. and I am going to introduce you as the incoming general manager to the staff you already work with. Is that all right? I said yes. He said, Nora, yes. You do not have to do any of this today. If you want a week, if you want a month, if you want to think about it, you say the word and I put you in a car and you go home. The papers get signed. The hotel gets bought. Marcus stays gone. You can walk into the Aldrich in 6 weeks or 6 months or never. Do you understand? I said, I understand. Which do you want? Today. All of it. Today. He nodded once. All right, he said. To Enzo, he said, Newbury and Berkeley, please. The car moved. At Newbury and Berkeley, he took me into a store where the woman at the door greeted him by name and did not blink when he said, This is Miss Bennett. She is going to be the general manager of the Aldrich Hotel by 40:30 this afternoon, and she needs 3 suits by 2 o'clock. Navy charcoal and one that is not either of those. Cut for her. Not made smaller. Cut for her. Do you understand what I am saying to you? The woman said, Mr. Vitale, I understand exactly what you are saying to me. I opened my mouth, I closed it. Damiano turned to me. Nora, Damiano. I know. Damiano, I cannot. I know. Listen to me. You are going to be photographed today. There will be a photograph in the business section of the Globe by Friday. Aaron will make sure of it because Aaron wants the market to know he's sold to me. I want the photograph to be of a woman in a suit that fits her. I am not buying you clothes. I am buying the general manager of my hotel a uniform. You will approve every invoice that comes into that hotel from this store from this day forward. That is what this is. Do you understand? I looked at the woman at the door. She was pretending to look at a rack of scarves. She was not fooling anyone. I said, I understand. He said, good. I got 3 suits. The Navy one was ready in 40 minutes because they had a tailor in the back and Damiano had called ahead at 7 that morning. The charcoal, and the third one, which was a soft dove gray with a jacket cut long over the hips, in the way that made me look for the first time in my life in a professional garment like myself, would be delivered to the hotel on Friday. I wore the Navy one out of the store. I left my gray wool coat with the missing button in a bag with the tailor. Damiano did not comment. 2 weeks later, it came back to me at the hotel with a new button, dry cleaned, wrapped in tissue, with a note pinned to the collar and a handwriting I did not recognize. For the walks to the T.D. I still have that coat. At 2 o'clock, we sat at a Walnut conference table on Federal Street in the office of a woman named Rachel Kim, who was 41, a Yale Law graduate, 5 feet tall, and the most terrifying human being I have ever met in the professional setting. She read every page of a stack of paper 11 inches thick, out loud to me at half speed, so that I would understand what my new employer was signing me into. She said things like, Miss Bennett, this clause here means that Mr. Vitale, as sole owner of Vitale Hospitality LLC, has the absolute right to remove you from your position at any time and for any reason. And I want you to look at him across this table right now and tell me that you understand that. I looked at him across the table. He was watching Rachel with the same expression a man wears watching his dog do a trick he taught it. I said, I understand that, Rachel. Rachel said, Miss Bennett, this clause here means that Mr. Vitale has waived that right in your specific case by written amendment dated today and cannot remove you from the position for the first 5 years of your contract except for cause as defined by Section 14, subsection C, which is theft, fraud, or criminal conviction. Do you understand what I have just told you? I said, yes, Rachel. He cannot fire you, Miss Bennett. Not for the color of the walls. Not for the shape of your body. Not because his mother does not like you at Sunday dinner. Not for 5 years. Do you understand? Yes, Rachel. She turned to Damiano. She said, Mr. Vitale, please confirm on the record that you have read Section 14, subsection A in its entirety. He said, I have read it, Rachel. Please confirm you understand that if you attempt to breach that clause, I will personally represent Miss Bennett in the lawsuit that follows and I will win. I understand, Rachel. Sign here, please. He signed. I signed. The shoe, Rachel signed. Aaron Weiss, who had come in halfway through and had not said a word to anyone except a small nod to me and a handshake with Damiano, signed. A notary I had not been introduced to stamped every page. Rachel closed the folder. She stood up. She held her hand out to me across the table. "Congratulations, General Manager," she said. "You're going to be very good at this." I shook her hand. It was the first time in my life a woman in a suit had shaken my hand and called me a title I had not stood behind a desk to earn. I did not cry then either. I was saving it. At 4:29 we stood on the sidewalk in front of the Aldrich. Damiano turned to me. "Nora." "Yes. Last chance." "For what?" "For any of it. We can go back to the car. We can drive to Warwick and see your mother. We can have dinner. We can do this tomorrow instead. Say the word." I said, "Damiano." Yes. I had been walking through the store for 2 years and 4 months. I had walked through it in a blazer I paid for. I had walked through it after a night I did not sleep because my mother did not recognize me on the phone. I had walked through it the morning after my landlord raised my rent $200. I walked through it every day. I'm walking through it today too. And tomorrow. Open the door, please. He opened the door. We walked through the lobby together. He was on my left. I was in the navy suit that had been cut for me. Enzo was 3 steps behind. Patrice looked up from the desk. Hector looked up from the fireplace. Brittany, at Station 3, looked up from her computer, and I watched her face go from confusion to recognition to a color I do not have a name for. I walked to the Walnut desk. I put both hands flat on it. I looked at Patrice. Patrice said very quietly, "Nora." I said, "Patrice, would you gather the staff? All of them. The desk, the bell stand, the concierge, engineering, housekeeping supervisors, F&B leadership, security, and the second floor ballroom in 15 minutes. Would you please do that for me?" Patrice's eyes were wet. She said, "Yes, Miss Bennett, I would be very happy to do that for you." I said, "Thank you, Patrice." I turned to Damiano. He was standing 3 feet behind me with his hands folded in front of him. He was smiling. Not the small 2-second smile from the night before. A different one. A whole one. "Mr. Vitale," I said. "Miss Bennett, would you follow me upstairs, please? There is a manager's office on the second floor that I need to have open for me. I do not have a key. The staff will not have a key. Mr. Halbert had the only one." He said, "Enzo." Enzo said, "Signora, there is a locksmith at the service entrance. He arrived at 4:15. The office is open. Your new key is on the desk. The old key is in an envelope in the top drawer, in case you would like to have it." I looked at Damiano. He said, "I called at 9 this morning." I said, "Thank you, Enzo." Enzo bowed. Not a nod. A bow. From the waist. In the middle of the lobby of the Aldrich Hotel. Patrice saw it. Hector saw it. Brittany saw it. I turned and I walked to the elevator, and I pressed the button for the second floor. Damiano got in beside me. Enzo did not. The doors closed. In the elevator, alone with him, I said, "Damiano." "Yes. I am going to cry now." "Yes." "For about 30 seconds." "Yes." "Do not touch me." "If you touch me, I will cry longer." "Yes." I cried for 30 seconds against the mirrored back wall of the elevator of the hotel I now ran. He did not touch me. He stood at the front of the car with his back 3/4 turned and his hands folded, giving me the room. When the doors opened on the second floor, I wiped my face once with the back of my hand, and I straightened my jacket, and I walked out ahead of him, and I did not look back, and he did not comment. He never commented. Not that day, and not any day after. I ran the Aldrich for 14 months before he asked me to marry him. I want to tell you about the 14 months, because the 14 months are the part that mattered. The rest of it, the ring and the couch and the September wedding, all of that people can guess at. The 14 months are the part I would tell you about if we were sitting in the sitting area by the fireplace, and you had asked me how a woman like me ended up with a man like him. Patrice took the assistant GM job the next week. She said yes at her kitchen table in Dorchester with a cup of instant coffee in her hands, and she said, "Nora Bennett, if you had asked me any other man in that hotel, I would have said no." Hector got a raise. and the title of head bellman and a set of business cards. Brittany was moved to the fifth floor front of house role, a promotion Marcus had promised her but never delivered. She thanked me in the hallway on her third day, and I told her I did not want thanks. I wanted her to be excellent at her job, and she was. I ran the desk from behind a walnut desk of my own on the second floor. I hired 2 new front desk agents by June, both size 14 or up both. Hired for competence and not for a look, and I did not have to say a word to the uniform vendor, because the uniform vendor got a call from Rachel Kim in April and expanded their sizing to a size 28 by the end of the summer. I did not know Rachel had made the call for 8 months. When I found out, I called her and I said, "Rachel," and she said, "Miss Bennett, do not thank me. That call cost me 1 phone call and 40 seconds, and it should have been made 20 years ago. Now what do you actually need?" And I understood that Rachel Kim was going to be a person in my life for the rest of my life. And I made my peace with it. Damiano stayed in the presidential suite for 6 more nights, and then he left. He came back on the first Tuesday of every month for the executive committee meeting, at which he sat at the far end of the table and did not speak unless I asked him a direct question, which I did. Sometimes, when I wanted the room to hear his answer instead of mine, he came back every second Friday for dinner in the hotel restaurant alone at the corner table by the window, and he read a book while he ate, and he tipped Enrique the waiter $100 in cash, and he did not come to see me on the second floor unless I called down and asked him to come up. I called down. Not every Friday, not the first 3. But by June I was calling down. I would say, "Mr. Vitale, if you are finished with your dinner, would you like to look at the fourth quarter CapEx plan?" He would say, "Miss Bennett, I would be delighted." He would come up to my office. He would sit across the walnut desk from me. He would read whatever I put in front of him. He would ask 3 questions, always 3, and the questions were always the questions I had not thought hard enough about. He would sign whatever I asked him to sign. He would stand up. He would say, "Thank you, Miss Bennett." I would say, "Thank you, Mr. Vitale." He would leave. He did not touch me for 11 months. He did not try. He did not flirt. He did not send flowers. He did not appear at my apartment unannounced. He did not call me outside of work hours. Once in July, he sent Enzo to my apartment on a Sunday afternoon with a small crate of tomatoes from a garden he kept in Malden, and a note in his handwriting that said, "My mother sent these because I told her about your sandwiches." D. That was the only thing that was not strictly professional in 11 months. I understood what he was doing. He was giving me the room. He had bought me a hotel on a Tuesday night in March. He had signed a piece of paper Rachel Kim had drafted that meant he could not remove me from the job for 5 years. He had put me in a suit that had been cut for me, and he had walked me across a lobby in front of the woman who had told me I was too heavy to stand in it, and then he had stepped back. He had stepped back, and he had stayed stepped back for 11 months, because he understood, and this is the thing I did not understand about him until much later, he understood that if he had touched me in the first year, the story would have been that a mafia king bought a plus-size receptionist a hotel and put her in a job so he could sleep with her, and I would have known that story was not true, and he would have known that story was not true. But the whole city would have believed that story, and my staff would have half believed it, and the vendors would have quarter believed it, and I would never have run that building the way I needed to run it. He knew that. He gave me 11 months of clean daylight to become the general manager on my own, in my own suits with my own numbers, and by the time he came back around the walnut desk the second time, nobody in that lobby was whispering about anything except the March occupancy rate, which was up 11% year over year, because I had renegotiated the corporate contract with Fidelity in February, and Patrice had personally called every executive assistant in Boston to tell them we were open for business again. That was what he did in the 11 months. He gave me the room. On the second Tuesday in February, 14 months after the afternoon Marcus Halberd fired me in the middle of my lobby, Damiano came in through the revolving door at 11:14 in the morning. He was in the charcoal 3-piece suit. He was carrying a folded newspaper under his arm. He did not come to the second-floor office. He went to the sitting area. He sat down on the leather couch by the fireplace. He unfolded the paper. He set it on the low table beside him. He did not read it. He waited. Patrice came into my office at 11:17. She closed the door behind her. She said, "Nora." "Yes." "Mr. Mara." Vitale is downstairs. I know. He is on the couch. I know. He is not reading the paper. I know, Patrice. She looked at me for a long time. Nora Bennett. Yes. You go down there. I am going down there. I will hold your calls. Thank you, Patrice. I went down the stairs, not the elevator, the stairs. I came out in the lobby and I crossed the marble and I walked past my own front desk, at which Brittany, who was now the late evening agent, looked up and saw my face and did the smallest possible thing with her mouth, which was almost a smile, and I did not look at her. I walked to the couch by the fireplace. He stood up when I got there. I said, Mr. Vitale. He said, Miss Bennett. He held out his hand. He was holding a small black box. He did not open it. Nora, he said. His voice was very low, not quiet, low. It did not carry to the desk. It did not carry to Hector at the door. It came to me and stopped. Yes, Damiano. I have been carrying this since the second Tuesday in March. It is 14 months old this morning. I have not opened it in front of you, because I made you a promise the night I bought this hotel, and the promise was that I would not touch you, and I would not ask you for anything, and I would give you the room, until you told me you were finished with the room. I am asking you now if you are finished with the room. If you are not finished, I will put this back in my pocket and I will come back next month and I will ask you again, and the month after that, and the month after that. Do you understand what I am telling you? I said yes. I said, open it. He opened it. Inside was a plain gold band, no stone, no engraving on the outside. He turned it so I could see the inside. There were 4 words engraved along the inner curve, small, on a plain type. Cut for her. Not smaller. I put my hand over my mouth. He waited. I took my hand away. I held out my left hand, palm down, over the low table with the folded newspaper on it. He took the ring out of the box. He slid it onto my finger. It fit. Of course it fit. He had had 14 months. He lifted my hand. He pressed his mouth to the inside of my wrist. Just once. Just there. Hector, at the door, turned around and pretended to look at the street. Patrice, at the top of the stairs, which I had not known she was standing at the top of, made a small sound and turned around and pretended she had not. Brittany, at the desk, did the smallest possible thing with her mouth again, and then very professionally answered the phone. I said, Damiano. He said, yes, Nora. I said, I am going to cry now, for about 30 seconds. Do not touch me. If you touch me, I will cry longer. He said, yes, Nora. I cried for 30 seconds standing in front of the leather couch by the fireplace of the hotel. I ran in a dove-gray suit that had been cut for me, in front of the man who had folded a newspaper for me on a Wednesday afternoon in March. He did not touch me. He stood 3 feet away with his hands folded in front of him, and he waited. When I was finished, I wiped my face once with the back of my hand and I straightened my jacket. He said, Miss Bennett, yes. May I take you to lunch? I said, yes, Mr. Vitale. I would like that very much. We walked out through the revolving door together onto Arlington Street. It was a Tuesday in February and the sun was out and the public garden was across the street with the last of the winter light in the trees. We were married in September in a small church on Prince Street. His mother sat in the 3rd pew on the left. Patrice was my maid of honor. Hector walked me down the aisle because my father had been dead since I was 22, and Hector had been the one who lit the fireplace in the lobby. I had stood in for 2 years and 4 months and I could not think of a person I would rather have on my arm. Enzo cried. Rachel Kim did not cry, but she did smile once, and I marked it in my calendar. Marcus Halbert, according to a Google search Patrice did on a slow Tuesday in April, was selling life insurance in Cincinnati. His LinkedIn photograph showed a man 20 pounds heavier than the one who had fired me, in a suit that did not fit him, standing in front of a beige office wall. Patrice showed it to me on her phone. I looked at it for maybe 3 seconds. I said, Patrice. Yes, Nora. Close the tab. She closed the tab. We went back to work. The Aldrich is still there. I still run it. The couch by the fireplace is still there. Hector still lights the fire at 6:30 every morning from October to April. On the second Tuesday of every month, I sit at the far end of the executive committee table and I speak first, and my husband sits at the other end. And he does not speak unless I ask him a direct question, which sometimes I do when I want the room to hear his answer instead of mine. The desk is still walnut. The blazer I paid $180 for at Nordstrom on my lunch break in July of the year I was hired is folded in tissue paper in the bottom drawer of the walnut desk on the second floor. I do not throw it out. I do not look at it very often. I know it is there. That is enough.